Welcome to the anointed ones. Jealousy is an unpaid compliment to the weak, selected ones. You've already made people uncomfortable before you ever open your lips, much alone describe who you are or what you've gone through. According to surveys, most individuals compare themselves to others at least once each minute, and that's in daily situations. Consider what occurs when you enter into the room armed with survival, vision, and strength, rather than just presence. They are unable to copy. The measuring stick bends. Their composure breaks. And suddenly, your entire presence seems like an assault on their identity. And here's something they'll never confess. You are having a greater influence than you realize. Even when you question yourself, you may be sitting at home in your sweatpants, eating cereal straight off the box, while someone is scrolling through your life like it's the conclusion of their favorite drama series Mad Jealous, taking notes on your every move. The irony, you did not apply for this position, yet you are altering destiny, rearranging rooms, and inspiring envy without even logging in. So brace up, because we're going to reveal why people are so furious with you and why your power extends much beyond what you've previously imagined. This is not about ego. It's about the truth. The reality is, you've become the storm they didn't see coming. Number 1, your presence pushes them to face their own mediocrity. Your presence causes others to face their own mediocrity in ways they cannot avoid. It's not because you're out here gloating, shoving success in their faces, or attempting to make a statement. It's because the manner you live quietly reveals what they've agreed on. When someone has convinced themselves that good enough is enough, standing next to someone who continues to push, evolve, and develop without apology feels like a spotlight shining down on all of their compromises. You are not competing with them, but rather holding up a mirror. And in that mirror, they see a version of themselves that they abandoned years before. This is when the jealousy intensifies. People do not become upset because you are flawless. They know you've had your fair share of failures, challenges, and defeats. What bothers them is that you didn't stop there. You kept building. You continued learning. You did not use difficulty as an excuse to remain stagnant. And every time they see you going ahead, it brings back the shame of the times they gave up on themselves. That guilt is overwhelming, and instead of converting it into drive, they turn it into animosity against you. It's weird that you didn't come to evaluate anybody, yet your life has automatically become a measuring stick. People see how you've weathered storms others couldn't handle and made progress with less resources than they had. The contrast is harsh for them. They begin to question whether they can accomplish it. What is my excuse? Most individuals dislike asking themselves difficult questions, so they transfer the burden to you. Suddenly, you seem too haughty or fortunate, whereas in reality, you are just living in a manner that refuses to shrink. The fact is that individuals prefer to point out your mistakes than recognize their own laziness. They would rather blame you than admit that they've given up on themselves. That's why your mere presence irritates them. It highlights what they choose not to fight for. Here's the kicker. You're not even attempting to create an impression in such times. You're simply being yourself. However, just being yourself is enough to shatter the illusions others have created for their own comfort. That is the kind of effect that cannot be faked. It's also the reason why jealousy will always be with you. Number 2, your influence is felt in quiet before it is seen in public. Your impact is felt in silence long before it becomes visible in public. The fact is that you can change atmospheres without making any noise, which is precisely what disturbs people the most. They can't precisely define it, but they feel different when they enter a place. Conversations shift direction. Energy rearranges itself, and suddenly there is tension in the air that did not there before. It is not about being popular or having the loudest voice in the room. The unseen weight you bear draws attention. That weight represents presence, which is something you cannot imitate or purchase. What makes it compelling is that most people spend their lives wanting to be recognized. They bend themselves out of shape, seek acceptance, and struggle for shreds of recognition. Nonetheless, their efforts are only marginally effective. Meanwhile, you're not pursuing anything, yet you leave your mark on people's thoughts without saying a word. That subtle influence lasts long after you go. People are still talking about what you said or how you handled yourself when you didn't say anything at all. That kind of impression is more dangerous than dazzling successes since it is not designed for display. It's based on essence. It arouses envy because people understand that they cannot create it. They may duplicate your manner, repeat your words, or attempt to outperform you, but they will never be able to recreate the mood you create. Presence stems from all you've overcome, everything you've recovered from, and the authenticity you refuse to compromise on. As a result, it speaks louder than any other performance. It is not a mask. This is the genuine you, and the real you disturbs the fake versions of others. This is when the hidden impact kicks in. You may not always notice the consequences of your actions, but others do. Some people are inspired. Some people are intimidated. Some are downright jealous because they know they will never dominate a room. You do it effortlessly. Your stillness exposes their cacophony. Your groundedness exposes their disarray. And your very presence demonstrates that true authority does not need continual explanation. It just is. That's why you're having a bigger influence than you expected. Because what you carry cannot be conveyed in words. However, it affects everything around you. Number 3, they are envious of how you overcame situations that should have broken you. They are envious of your resilience in the face of adversity. And here is when the animosity truly begins. Most people anticipate suffering to leave such deep scars that they will never completely heal. They anticipate trauma to make you bitter, tiny, and permanently marked as a victim. But you accomplished the inconceivable. You stepped through the flames. Instead of smelling like smoke, you emerged stronger, smarter, and more resilient than before. Simply surviving is a testament. Some individuals find it unpleasant to observe since it disrupts the narrative on which they had relied. Your strength serves as a reminder of their own weaknesses. They've seen you go through situations that would have devastated them. And it sparks a combination of adoration and jealousy that they don't know how to manage. On the one hand, they can't dispute that your perseverance is remarkable. On the other side, it requires them to admit that they failed in circumstances much less tough than yours. The contrast is strong. It leaves them feeling exposed. Instead of cheering your progress, they let envy hide their guilt. The true hurt is that you didn't just survive. You changed. You did not just climb out of the pit. The anguish helped you gain insight, strength, and a greater sense of purpose. Many individuals never get over their pain. They are locked in cycles of self-pity or rage. And seeing you thrive after adversity calls into question their justifications. That's when resentment sets in. It is simpler for them to despise you than to accept that they lacked the guts to mend. This is why your survival has such an influence without you knowing it. You have become live evidence that suffering does not have to be the end. You carry an authority that cannot be faked, an authority that can only be gained by surviving the same things that are supposed to kill you. That power alters how others see you, react to you, and even speak about you when you are not there. It makes people envious because they can't understand how you can convert sorrow into strength when they're still dealing with the same old scars. At the center of it all, your survival shatters expectations. It demonstrates that perseverance is not limited to the fortunate. It is the outcome of not giving up. And when others see that you refuse to give in to circumstances, it makes them uncomfortable because they know they might have done the same. The number for your vision is more than their total reality. Your vision is broader than their whole world, which makes people nervous. Most individuals exist in little, secure boxes of existence, worrying about finances, the latest gossip, and sticking to patterns they've persuaded themselves are sufficient. That is their whole reality. And it is predictable, controllable, and, most crucially, unchallenging. Then there's you, moving on levels that are beyond their understanding. You consider possibilities, effect, and development that do not fit neatly into their blueprints. That type of thinking disrupts their comfort zone since it is difficult to ignore. They are not envious of your titles or external accomplishments. The jealousy stems from the fact that your thought refuses to conform to theirs. While they've made peace with constraints, you've just made peace with possibility, and the contrast highlights their restricted thinking. Watching someone grow while remaining stationary causes a mild worry. They understand that no matter how much they attempt to control or condemn you, your vision will always surpass theirs. Your manner of perceiving the world also challenges people to realize what they've previously overlooked. Every time you talk, act, or plan quietly, it reminds them of the larger game they're not participating. That is unpleasant. Most individuals deal with this by transferring hostility onto you, labeling your goal as arrogant or obsessive. They fail to see that your vision is not a competition. It's just how your awareness functions. You exist on a level of growth, which makes others feel tiny, stuck, and dissatisfied without recognizing why their envy flares. Because your viewpoint represents freedom in action, you are not constrained by the deadlines, anxieties, or narrow thinking that govern them. They can see and feel it, but they cannot reproduce it. Your ideas, aspirations, and tactics, they move quicker than their opponents. Every move you take emphasizes the limitations they've set in their own lives. That type of influence is unseen but evident. It spreads through the people around you, gently testing, silently altering, and reminding them that their reality can never equal yours until they grow themselves. You don't need to prove anything since the distinction is clearly obvious. Your intellect does not shrink, which makes you both inspirational and annoying to anybody trapped in the confines of their own universe. Number 5. They are envious of the attention you get without even asking. They envy the attention you get without even asking for it, since it demonstrates how easy your presence is in comparison to their efforts. You don't have to perform only to get people's attention. Your vibe naturally attracts them. People gravitate towards you. Listen to what you say and follow your lead without having to demand it. That easy pull reveals the reality they have been concealing. No amount of plotting, boasting, or manipulating can match your intrinsic magnetic attraction. Many people's lives revolve on the relentless pursuit of exposure. They want attention, analyze their every action, and determine their value based on the plaudits they get. They believe that attention is acquired by loudness, tactics, or placement. When they meet you, all of their efforts seem insignificant. You wield power without thinking about it, which scares them because it exposes how ineffective their attempts are. The attention you attract is not based on your position, assets, or external approval. It stems from something deeper: authenticity, consistency, and the serene certainty that you are totally present in your truth. The envy grows since they can witness it in real time. They see how people naturally draw to your ideas, energy, and presence, and it stings. They observe how easily others interact with you while they're struggling for leftovers. It's not about luck. It's about finding a natural fit between who you are and the effect you make. That kind of relationship cannot be purchased, imitated, or faked, which makes people uneasy. They despise it deeply. You do not have to bend, perform, or compromise to obtain attention. Your visibility is not transactional. It's not forced. It comes from being really yourself and continually turning up, even if you don't recognize the impact you make. That seamless identification undermines everything they've learned about power, influence, and control. It serves as a reminder that someone who exudes sincerity will always outperform someone who tries too hard. They covet the attention you don't even seek for, since it reveals their need for approval. Every look, gesture, and ear bend toward you demonstrates that influence is not about desperation. It's about alignment, presence, and unwavering confidence in who you are. And they can't make it, regardless of how much they try. Number 6. Your honesty makes their masks itchy. Your genuineness causes their masks to itch because you function on a level of truth they are incapable of faking. You do not shapeshift to manipulate or fit in. You present yourself as you are, with no changes, filters, or false pretenses. Honesty is unsettling for those who have spent years establishing their identities on falsehoods, half-truths, and appearances. When you're with them, their carefully constructed personalities begin to fracture. Every word you say, every action you perform, discreetly reveals the difference between who they appear to be and who they really are. They find the exposure unpleasant, so envy becomes their default protection. They've invested much in illusions, believing that displaying power, charm, or success would protect them from criticism. You force those illusions to shake because your presence defies pretense. You do not verify their stories. You do not perform for them. And you surely do not participate in their games. And this is terrible for someone who has developed their identity. Depends on others getting involved. Your genuine self serves as a mirror. Whether you meant it or not, you were reflecting back what they thought no one would see. Envy in this scenario is nearly natural. They can't undermine your reality without assaulting you, so they do it with animosity. The more unabashedly genuine you are, the more uncomfortable they get. They feel exposed, vulnerable, and inferior since you have mastered something that they do not have the capacity to do without permission, approval, or admiration. You started with honesty and built yourself up from there. Nothing about it can be manufactured or stolen, making it impenetrable to those who continue to hide behind masks. Your sincerity also calls into question the social systems that they cling to. People who engage in pretense depend on influencing perceptions to feel strong or significant. You can avoid all of this since your impact is not dependent on people believing a tale. It stems from substance, not artifice. When substance meets facade, the latter begins to itch, twist, and unravel. That is why people envy you. You don't simply create waves. You uncover stagnation, dishonesty, and insecurity by just being yourself. Being authentic in a society full of masks isn't simply uncommon. It is revolutionary. Watching someone prosper without pretense serves as a continual reminder of what they lack and will never be able to imitate. Number 7. You make them feel replaceable without trying. You unintentionally make them feel replaceable. And it is the kind of silent power that frightens people more than words ever could. It's not about bragging or showing off. It is simply reality. Your appearance, choices, and demeanor all indicate a level of independence that most people subconsciously dread. They need continual affirmation, approbation, and attention to feel relevant. You, on the other hand, work from a position where your value is not dependent on anybody else's acknowledgement. That alone is dangerous because it reminds them of their own need and insecurity. When others see you prospering without anybody to support you, it causes a subconscious terror in them. They note that your connections, relationships, and power do not stem from desperation. You do not bend, manipulate, or overextend yourself to get acceptance. You just exist completely. And this reveals their incessant attempts to maintain power or gain favor. They recognize they might be replaced, forgotten, or bypassed, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Because your stability is not dependent on them. That knowledge is unpleasant, and jealousy rapidly takes over the place where fear resides. Your freedom also redefines expectations of devotion and importance, while others strive to prove themselves. You act with the awareness that you are irreplaceable. In essence, even when duties, titles, or circumstances change. That type of self-reliance exposes the frailty of people who cannot stand alone. They have based their confidence on reliance, making themselves indispensable via manipulation, attention-seeking, or control. And your life simply gets around all of that. This is why your calm, steady demeanor still resonates. You do not need to make them feel tiny. It comes organically because your power forces others to reconsider their own relevance. You stand alone, and the fact of your independence is stronger than any debate, conflict, or demonstration of superiority. Their jealousy stems not from your acts, but from the calm, incontrovertible fact that your stability, influence, and self-worth exist independently of them. Being unshakable and independent in a world filled with dependence. Rare. And for those who depend on others for affirmation, seeing someone prosper without it serves as a continual reminder of their own shortcomings. The power to stand alone is more than simply freedom. It's a mirror reflecting their vulnerability. And the mirror burns. Number 8. Your reinvention made their stagnation seem like failure. Your reinvention made their stagnation seem like failure. And it is a fact that few people will ever admit. They've created whole identities around remaining the same, telling themselves that their routines, habits, and choices are perfectly acceptable. Then you arrive, developing at a rate they can't grasp. Every time you rise, you shed old versions of yourself, like worn-out clothing, and enter new levels of power, knowledge, and confidence. It shows how long they've been standing motionless. They don't dislike your progress because it is dazzling. They despise it because it makes their justifications difficult to accept. Transformation has a way of highlighting everything around it. When you develop, it highlights the gaps in everyone else's life. It reveals who is doing the effort, who is still stuck in their comfort zones, and who secretly hopes that things will change without them. People see you leveling up, and it makes their old behaviors appear not just static, but little and sad. Instead of allowing that light motivate them to develop, they become bitter because bitterness is easier than responsibility. The deeper ache comes from the reality that you did not develop under ideal circumstances. You did not wait till it was convenient. You did not have full support, resources, or applause. You've just chosen to develop. And you did. That choice dispels the myth that circumstances are what keep individuals back. It demonstrates that the main impediment is their own refusal to adapt. Instead of confronting this, they transfer hatred onto you, fabricating tales about your luck or privilege, since it is easier than recognizing you just had the bravery to relocate. Every new version of you is a muted protest to their previous justifications. It unsettles them to see you performing something they said was impossible or unneeded. It calls into question the comfort they mistakenly associate with accomplishment. That is why, rather than cheering you on, some people retreat or begin gossiping behind your back. Your growth is a mirror. They are not prepared to investigate. Here's the silent force of your change. It isn't even about proving them incorrect. It's about being the person you were intended to be. But in the process, your progress exposes their stagnation for what it is. Not safety, but failure masquerading as stability. And the truth burns. Number 9. They despise that your presence is still discussed after you depart. They despise the fact that your presence is still discussed after you depart, since it demonstrates that your impact is independent of your actual presence. You may leave a place, a discussion, or even a circumstance with an energy that stays. People keep replaying your words, actions, effect, and even the way you change the environment. That lasting presence is not something you can force. It is the inevitable outcome of sincerity, confidence, and the weight of your experiences. For those who struggle to be recognized even when they are there, seeing your impact continue without effort is irritating. This goes deeper than anything you say or do in the moment because it highlights the distinction between content and performance. Many individuals use noise to draw attention to themselves or to manipulate others. They hope that their presence makes an effect, but it usually evaporates as soon as they depart. In contrast, you leave tiny but irrefutable imprints. That lingering impact serves as a reminder that influence does not have to be loud, spectacular, or consistent. It's about how deeply you connect, how genuine you are, and how you present yourself. They feel helpless in the face of this since they are unable to recreate it no matter how hard they try. They cannot produce the sort of resonance you do. Naturally, this makes them bitter since your energy continues to affect others long after you've stopped engaged. Your presence becomes a benchmark, a level they can't match, and this insidiously feeds their jealousy. The reality is, your enduring influence reflects your depth. You've lived, learned, and evolved in ways that give your presence significance. It is not about impressing someone. It's about truly living and leaving a trail of waves. People notice it. Even if they won't confess it, they talk about it, and, sometimes, envy it. The fact that your presence persists after you depart demonstrates that influence is never about control. It is about sincerity, substance, and a calm authority that cannot be ignored. That echo of your energy demonstrates that your impact is not fleeting or superficial. It lingers, and it matters. And it disturbs everyone who has spent their life attempting to be remembered without ever genuinely leaving an imprint. Your influence does not vanish. It persists. And that perseverance is excruciating for those trapped in ephemeral moments of realization. Number 10. Your strength does not match your resources. Your strength does not correspond to the resources you have. And it is what causes individuals to be jealous without recognizing it. Most people define power as what you possess, what you have access to, or the advantages you have been granted. They believe that success is proportionate to privilege, and that outcomes are only relevant when supported by wealth, connections, or prestige. Then they look at you, and the equation does not add up. You can do more with less, create chances from shortages, and turn problems into successes in ways people don't understand. That type of ingenuity demonstrates how much they depend on external advantages, which hurts. The disparity is the source of jealousy. They had tools, safety nets, and benefits at their disposal. However, they are stuck attempting to make a dent while you flourish on what most would consider inadequate. They notice your growth, but are unable to reconcile it with their own lack of success. They know they could do much better if they had your inherent persistence, resourcefulness, and bravery. This knowledge makes individuals uncomfortable because it highlights their reliance on circumstances rather than inner strength. Their jealousy is heightened by the fact that you seem to do it effortlessly. They watch you overcome barriers, develop, create, and influence, and it seems almost unjust. The fact is that your strength is not based on chance. It's all about mentality, perseverance, and the capacity to transform scarce resources into outcomes. Every success becomes a quiet message. Success isn't defined by what you have. It's all about how you use what you've got. Because they didn't learn that lesson, seeing you succeed becomes a source of frustration rather than inspiration. Your capacity to do more with less also reveals entitlement. People with access to plenty often forget how to struggle, innovate, and take responsibility. Your existence serves as a reminder that privilege is insufficient to make an influence. And the reminder is unpleasant. You don't just succeed. You have redefined what it means to thrive. And in doing so, you make their advantages seem squandered, their troubles self-inflicted, and their jealousy inevitable. This is why your strength makes them nervous. It is not just physical or intellectual. It's a mix of perseverance, ingenuity, and drive that pushes beyond the constraints of circumstance. You flourish where others stumble, and your natural ability to ascend without crutches reveals their dependence on what they believe is most important. That fact gnaws at them silently, constantly, and with increasing hatred. They are upset because you do not disintegrate in the face of rejection. They are enraged because you do not disintegrate in the face of rejection, which entirely violates their expectations. Most people believe that when doors shut, chances slip away, or people turn their backs, everything will tremble. You weakened or broke your spirit. They anticipate watching you stumble, struggle, or plead for something that is no longer accessible. Instead, you answer in a manner that makes their preconceptions hilarious. You do not collapse. You do not beg. You do not whine. And you definitely don't let rejection define your worth. You just construct new doors, roads, and proceed without hesitation. That sort of endurance infuriates those who secretly depend on external affirmation to thrive. The envy stems from their own insecurities. Deep down, they understand that rejection would have left them stranded, resentful, or defeated. They would have considered it a personal failure. They carried it as if it were a weight they couldn't shake. However, seeing you recover from failures encourages them to face the fact that power is not determined by chance or opportunity. It all comes down to how you respond. Your capacity to turn, rebuild, and keep going reveals the weakness in their own character, and jealousy becomes their natural response. Because adoration is very humble, what makes it worse for them is that your resilience is not performance-based. You're not bragging about attempting to prove anything or turning losses into tales for acclaim. You are just living in your confidence. Adaptability and calm drive come easily. That seamless ability of getting over rejection exposes how unprepared most individuals are to deal with life's setbacks. They watch you converting barriers into stepping stones while they stay stuck at the first one. This makes them feel tiny and incompetent. Your attitude to rejection challenges how people see failure. They have been taught to dread it, avoid it, and let it define them. You turned it into gasoline, a developmental tool and a harbinger of brighter days. That attitude is tough to mimic or imitate. Others are not just envious of your capacity to succeed in situations where others would fail. It disturbs them. It serves as a continual silent reminder that survival, prosperity, and strength do not revolve upon avoiding rejection. They are about refusing to be overcome by it. You do not collapse, and that fact alone indicates their insecurity while confirming yours. It's quiet, irrefutable, and completely irritating for anybody who hasn't figured out how to transform rejection into power. You are living evidence that spiritual power trumps social prestige. You are living evidence that spiritual power trumps social position. And it is a fact that disturbs individuals more than they would acknowledge. In a society where value is defined by following, financial accounts, and who you know, your mere presence challenges the script. People are used to seeing influence come from status symbols, money, titles, networks, or dazzling accomplishments. Despite this, you may command respect, transform atmospheres, and change people's thoughts and feelings without using any of those props. That type of power is inexplicable to them since it defies the norms. They have formed their lives around it. Your authority is not based on a platform, a salary, or a name drop. It stems from deeper alignment, spiritual integrity, sincerity, and a depth of experience that cannot be purchased. This is what makes you unique. Others rely on external validation to feel valued. You draw from a rock-solid inner source. People perceive it even if they can't express it. They may not comprehend why they feel calmer, bolder, or more convicted in your company, but they experience it anyway. They detest it because they are unable to replicate it. This is when the unease starts. You reveal the weakness of their authority. They lost their titles, following, and money. Many individuals could feel invisible. You, on the other hand, enter a room empty-handed, but with a presence that seems heavier than anything they've erected. It emphasizes the reality that they are attempting to avoid influence. Influence founded in spirit lasts, but influence rooted on status crumbles the moment the status departs. Watching you act in this manner causes them to be quietly afraid because it compels them to rethink the foundation of their authority. Your existence becomes a contrast to the world's systems. It demonstrates that true authority is not conferred by institutions, money, or popularity. It is the result of character, perseverance, and connection with something higher than oneself. That is why people feel uneasy. They've spent everything in the outside, just to watch you move whole rooms without lifting a finger. You demonstrate that genuine power is not loud, showy, or reliant. It is anchored in something everlasting. And that type of power will always make people who rely on borrowed authority feel tiny, anxious, and vulnerable. You don't only impact others. You change their trajectory. You don't only impact others. You change their trajectory. And it is the kind of effect that most people cannot even conceive, much alone deal with. When someone crosses your path, it is not just a flash of inspiration or a passing thought. It's a rethinking of how people view themselves, what they believe is achievable, and the choices they are prepared to make. Your presence, words, and even examples serve as a spark, pushing individuals onto avenues they might not have explored on their own. That amount of impact is not just obvious, but indisputable. And it is the kind of power that silently frightens those who seek influence by manipulation or superficial methods. Jealousy develops because what you do cannot be purchased, faked, or forced. People who wish they had your influence often seek followers, titles, or clout in order to create the appearance of power. You, on the other hand, can change people's lives without having to market it. The choices you inspire, the mentality changes you ignite, and the bravery you instill in people happen spontaneously, often without your even trying. That's more than just influence. It has destiny-altering power, and it shows the emptiness in anybody who has spent their life appearing to matter while making little genuine change. What irritates others even more is the fact that your influence is long-lasting. You don't just kindle a transient spark. You sow seeds that sprout into new paths, habits, and realities for those you touch. They remember your effect long after you've gone. And this long-term trend reveals how futile their efforts at influencing are. The analogy is not favorable, and hatred grows quietly. Your capacity to change paths, which is sometimes disguised under forced grins and polite chat, is not about control. It's all about alignment, presence, and the willingness to live completely. You have perfected a method of being. The changes, others' thoughts, feelings, and actions are influenced by the fact that you exemplify what many others only want to be. This is what makes people envious. They witness results. Growth and change flow from your presence, and they know that their own efforts, no matter how loud or calculated, can never have the same ripple effect. Finally, you demonstrate that true power does not need acknowledgement. It causes change that cannot be ignored. People are impressed, worried, and jealous at the same time when they realize they cannot produce such an effect. You are what you naturally provide. Number your light reveals what people previously believed was unseen. Your light reveals what people previously believed was invisible, and it is a kind of power. Most individuals don't know how to cope with situations without even trying. You operate like a mirror, reflecting what is really there. Not only do individuals want the world to see their polished image, but also their imperfections, fears, and secret motivations. They strive hard to hide. They've constructed their lives on the assumption that their darkness is undetected, that their resentment is carefully hidden, that their anxieties are hidden under charm or confidence. Then you step into the room, and something about your presence makes everything clear. They do not feel seen. They feel vulnerable. It's not like you walk around pointing fingers and calling people out. Your genuineness, clarity, and spiritual harmony just do not allow for pretenses to exist. It's as if you possess a frequency that causes masks to come off without notice. Their previously suppressed anxieties begin to surface in their actions. Sarcasm, backhanded compliments, or silent retreat are all examples of defensive behavior. And since they don't understand why they're behaving in this manner, they blame you. Instead of confronting the reality that your light is merely showing what was always present. That exposure seems like a danger to them because it undermines the image they've carefully created in their minds.